Before was like the Metaverse. Everyone remember the Metaverse? Everyone, right? Who is like a big believer of the Metaverse still, and still thinks that in the future it might take off and we might be living in VR and AR, XR, that sort of thing? I can't wait for the Apple Vision Pro. I think it's going to be really exciting, but I do think it's going to take a bit of time for it to become, mainstream. What are your views, chaps, on the Metaverse, on VR, XR, AR? Bit of a long list of terms and categories. Spatial computing, we'll throw that in there as well. What are your points of view? We'll start with yourself, Kim.
To be honest, it's not a space that I've thought a lot about. I've been in ed tech and climate tech, and I don't think I've seen many use cases for VR and Metaverse. I know people are trying to use the Metaverse for education, and there's potentially some interesting scenarios. But what I would say is when I did explore the space briefly is that I didn't find a use case for VR and Metaverse that wasn't a game. So pretty much everything out there, all the exciting Metaverse tools, all the exciting Metaverse applications, they were games, but they weren't solving real life problems. And I think that's the kind of key moment that it needs as soon as someone finds a real life use case that it's going to solve.
Yeah, for me it's if it can replace the smartphone. Because if you have got something on your head which has got notifications and maps and texts and everything else in between, and it replaces the majority use of the smartphone, then I can see it working. If it doesn't, then I agree, it's a gaming device, and that's what it will remain as. What's your view, Chris?
I'm really interested in the space, but I'm similar. I don't really see a compelling use that's not very specialized. So I have a friend who helps run a company that is doing VR for surgeons. So the idea of being able to remotely operate on someone, and that's fascinating. And I think that's probably quite niche and is not Zuckerberg's vision of the kind of VR or Metaverse for all, I think, which is slightly different. I'm fascinated by it. I don't think the hardware's yet. Apple's device looks amazing. I haven't got any inside info on it. I will try it out. I'll see what it's like. But I'm waiting probably another 10 years until the hardware is there. So there are fascinating companies that are building hardware into contact lenses. Don't really want to put one of those in my eyes yet, but the CEO apparently is doing so. That's quite interesting. I think the hardware has to take probably a couple of orders of magnitude leaps in terms of its simplicity. I want it to be like just wearing a pair of glasses. I'm much more interested in AR than I am in VR or XR, which I think is mixed reality, right? Or the idea of augmenting what I'm seeing. I don't really like being taken out of the place that I'm in. I've always found it fascinating to kind of see the world around me, the physical world around me, augmented in some way or have information added to that, which is why I quite like what Apple's doing with the Vision Pro. I think that they're onto something with some of their usability. I think the hardware is very clever. I still think there's a long way to go, but I think there is something in it. I think it's a reasonable way off. It's decades off for me.
Who owns a Meta Quest in the audience? Who's got like a headset? Okay, not many people. Okay, I think that kind of says it for itself already. But Kit finishes off Metaverse. In a few years, are we going to be living in Mark Zuckerberg's virtual world? Or are we going to be speaking face to face as humans?
I hope we're not. It's slightly depressing. Actually, for our company, we're actually something we're looking at with the AR because, long story short, we digitize frontline work. So not like most people in this room, people sit behind laptops, but people who are actually interacting in the world. NHS workers, people work in manufacturing plants, etc. And I think there is a use case there for AR because that it's a natural extension of where we're going. I think that makes sense. But knowing the kind of buying environment as I do, they need to get the unit cost of that hardware down significantly because it's not going to drive productivity for relatively low paid workers on an enterprise scale if they're going to have to spend a lot of money to equip every single person with one of those devices. So they'll have to do something about that, but I could see that being a real enhancement for the quality of life of a frontline worker. Absolutely. So I think that could actually be a really positive use case. For myself, I really don't want to get involved in that on a personal basis. I think we all spend enough time indoors as it is. I guess I can't see myself doing 24 hours a day online, but there you go.